So not long after we did our little talk about Lorenzo di Bonaventura and his mention of the Bumblebee movie not being a reboot but a prequel, and man, the comment section of that segment is
a war zone.
It's a
no
war.
One was left.
I will say this: it is without a doubt probably the most active video we've ever posted in our at least in a short amount of time. Within the span of barely 2 days, it's already been at 100 plus comments of people just arguing. It's a flame war over there.
Don't go.
Don't go there.
You don't want no part of this.
Anyways, so Lorenzo actually had some more stuff to say. So let's throw some gasoline on the fire here. He spoke with China.org, a Chinese news website, talking about the live-action Transformers franchise and its future. Now, he mentioned stuff that we've kind of heard about in the past, about the mention of an animated Transformer movie, the possibility of a Bumblebee sequel. Again, another thing, too, that we've heard in the past, an Optimus Prime standalone movie, or another major Transformers movie under the, I guess, main line now instead of a spin-off. But there was one that was mentioned here that caught my attention.
Well, I think it caught everyone's attention, to be very honest.
Pretty much was the only thing that he said that made everyone lift their head and go, wait, what? Was the consideration of a potential for a future of a Beast Wars movie. Now, we had John Cena not too long ago that did a little video online. I believe it was for College Humor. It was for some website. And he made a little joke about when is there going to be a Beast Wars movie. And his And his love for Black Arachnia. And that was all done in tongue-in-cheek and everything, and it was just humor. It wasn't saying, like, that's what's going to happen. But hearing this now from Lorenzo here really makes us go, oh, this is a good thing. It also, I think that also part of the reason why I think they might even consider doing a Beast Wars movie. And it's not a shot at Beast Wars. Everyone who's a listener of this podcast knows I think it's the greatest Transformer series ever made, and it's easily some of my favorite Transformer characters of all time.
I don't think anyone would disagree about that anyway. So, I think we're in good company here.
So I think, I just want to preface that because the thing is what I'm about to say is that I think that the reason why they're looking at doing a Beast Wars movie is because I feel that they're kind of at their, at the end of their rope when it comes to Transformers right now in the cinematic universe. And I think that it's kind of the same thing with Beast Wars originally, which was after Generation 2, they were just kind of like, man, we don't know where to go with Transformers with this. Like we've done everything we could, and then everything moved
to Kent.
They went
to space, they fought giant spiders, they fought a giant planet, excuse me.
Yeah.
They had to deal with Cobra Commander in the future time. They made a little girl exoskeleton legs. They kind of did it all technically. And they fought the hate plague.
So even from a toy standpoint,
we don't even need the hate plague. It's kind of called the internet. Yakety schmackety do.
But from even like a toy standpoint, I feel like they've pretty much exhausted. Hasbro exhausted everything they could have done with the brand at the time. I've always talked about how Hasbro was always emulating what was popular in toys at the time in order to keep alive with their Transformer brand. And I think that Beast Wars in a lot of ways was the same thing. They were just at their rope's end with G2, and they were just going like, we got to do something different. And they, their sister company, Kenner was handed everything, and the rest was history from there. And I don't need to tell you that. So I think it's the same thing that's going on here. I think that they've been like, you know what? I think we've exhausted the G1 thing enough. We've done as much as we can with these characters. We pretty much, as far as we could, introduced the character of Unicron without actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do this. But then all of this stuff and all the excitement after reading that paragraph, it's then followed up with however, the producer stresses that the fact of all of the above is it will only happen if the latest Bumblebee movie is a financial success. Now, part of me is like, what does financial success mean at this point? Because we do know that the Bumblebee movie is now in the green in terms of the money made compared to the budget. We don't know to factor that in with the advertising campaign because they had a big advertisement campaign and there was a big push behind that. So I don't know how much...
And we don't know what their projection was to become a success. What's success in their mind? What's their goal of the success? What's the, must reach this line to be counted as a success, and then therefore after that it's all gravy. We don't even have
totally
that information.
Because there's been a lot of times, and I want to use the word independent. I mean smaller movie studios. They've released movies that they expected to do okay and maybe make a little money profit, and they would consider that a success, and then they become these runaway hits. A good example was the very first Ninja Turtles movie by, I think it was called Golden Harvest was the company that did it, and even like RoboCop with Orion, the very first RoboCop movie.
Yeah.
Like those were movies that if they made their money back and a little more, they would be happy with that. But then, of course, those movies made insane money, and then that became a big thing for them. Where now studios, it's like even if the movie makes its money back and then some, it's still not considered a good thing. Movies, the crazy thing is, and yet we have movies that are bombs, and some of those movies that are bombs still end up getting those reboots and or sequels because they're franchises based on famous properties. So and the reason why I bring that up is because the way that I see it is, regardless of the Bumblebee movie being and I use air quotes here, financial success, it is right now factually. I mean, if you look at the numbers right now from China and everything, the movie is well above their budget now. Is it well above its budget if you looked at just domestic in the United States? No, unfortunately. But I mean, that was just more of a mistake from our side of the country, if anything, from a release date sort of thing. But ultimately, in the end, it is a financial success. And if that is the case, some of the things listed here, animated movie, Bumblebee 2, Optimus Prime movie, another major motion picture sequel or of the main line, or a Beast Wars movie, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious which one I would want out of all of these, because number one, I think that the interesting aesthetic that already exists from the movie designs, I think that would complement more a Beast Wars aesthetic, because Beast Wars itself was something that was designed in America, unlike a lot of the other Transformer toy lines and everything, like most of Generation 1, if not all of it, with the exception of Action Masters. Pretenders were also engineered in America, and I believe most of the MicroMaster stuff was engineered in America. Not all of it, but most of it. But the point is that a lot of that stuff from Beast Wars was actually engineered in America, so it has that American mecha aesthetic. It's known for its, it having those claw feet and the hooves and stuff like that because of it being Beast, that I think that the American mecha aesthetic that exists in the movie designs, again, having claws and hook feet and that kind of stuff and exposed parts, really lends to a Beast Wars aesthetic. And I know that might sound like sacrilege to some people, like, oh, no, don't even compare the movie designs to Beast Wars. But I think that there might be some kind of happy marriage there, that if there was a Beast Wars movie, but they still kept to whoever is the group of people that's behind doing those designs for the movie stuff, I think that it would actually kind of work. And then the thing that I would like is it would be a fresh take, regardless of the fact that if I like Beast Wars or not. The one thing that I hope that they would all follow up with is all of these characters would be new characters. It would all be the Beast Wars crew. We don't have another Bumblebee. We don't have another returning Optimus Prime character. We don't have Ratchet or Jazz or some of those other characters that got 1 or 2 movies or 3 or 4, like Ironhide or something. It would be a lot better. It would be a lot better because then we're introduced to a whole new cast. And if the Beast Wars movie, again, another thing that's very important, if it stays true to at least some of the source material, doing it in prehistoric Earth, using that excuse to not really have any human characters. I mean, you could have prehistoric human characters, but please, for the love of God, I hope that they don't become like the central focus. It's like what was that animated CG movie, The Croods or something? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it would be even, well, I wouldn't say worse, but would it be even weirder if it all of a sudden becomes Quest for Fire?
Yeah, or oh god,
and then the Transformers are literally in the background, so you don't have to spend too much money on like special effects.
For people who don't know, Quest for Fire was a really, really dated movie. It kind of. I don't want to say a documentary, but it's kind of like a interpretation of how the early days of man existed. And you could tell by the title of the movie, it's kind of like the origin of fire. But anyways, the point is that the thing with the movie Quest for Fire is that it's weird because with Quest for Fire, it's a movie when you're watching it, there's no English. It's apes.
It's like, imagine
It's
Wall-E, but instead of robots talking to each other, it's just grunts and squeaks
grunts
and yells and
it's all cavemen. So imagine now we have our Michael Bay movies and our Travis Knight movies where human characters are still the forefront and the Transformers really still are the background ultimately in the end. Except now there's no dialogue. It's just, Encino Man. I don't know how to describe it, but it would be weird, but at the same time, I kind of hope they won't go that route and like have characters like Jack and Una and the other ape characters. I would really hope that they do a prehistoric kind of story. Yeah, you want to have the live action segments? Have it be the animals. Yeah, okay, there's live action cheetahs in the background. There's live action antelopes, live action settings, and then use the CG. CG is so great now in Hollywood and with the Transformers, they won't look out of place in those live action backgrounds.
Well, wasn't that the whole reason? Wasn't that one of the tricks in Beast Wars where it's like, oh no, there's a lot of unstable energon. We can't be in our robot mode, so be in the animal modes more.
Well, I think the energon instability was more an excuse to why would they ever even use those alt modes. I mean, if you're a war, the thing with being a car or a jet, that's a transport thing.
Yeah.
You can't argue at the end of the day, with the exception of probably Blur, there's no Transformer that's running faster than a moving vehicle. And then the same thing with any flyer, and we're talking continuity here, but with the exception of, certain characters, most Transformers can't fly. So having an alt mode that is flight kind of it leads to that kind of advantage. So where in Beast Wars, it really was one of those things that it's like, why would you ever turn into a gorilla? What possible advantage would you have as a giant robot that probably has a jetpack? And that's the ironic thing with Optimus Primal, which was like he had a flight mode.
Yeah.
And that only existed.
He was the only flyer for the longest time.
Yeah, before Air Razor showed up, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that
it seemed like it, and if I remember right, it seemed like it hindered them way more than
that
the leader was the flyer, and it's just like
Well, it was part of the story. That was the story of Tigatron's episode, Fallen Comrade, which was Waspinator and Pterosaur were able to get to the pod before them, and they knew that Primal was the only one that could fly on their team, so they made sure to take out Primal's flight ability so they could get to the pod beforehand and stuff. Yeah. There was, again, yet another Beast Wars discussion because Beast Wars is so awesome. But it's really interesting to see that and the mention that if Bumblebee is a success, this could happen. But I mean, the way I see it, if out of the list here, I would love for Beast Wars movie to happen because it would be so fresh, and I think it would just work. I think it would just work.
At this point, we're very much saturated with Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, toys, TV shows, et cetera, so it's just like, man, we need to.
And on top of everything, it would be great for them because then they could revisit all those trademarks that some of them have been kind of floating and doing nothing. I know that, Creo was like a godsend for Hasbro because they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose the Cheetor trademark, the Rhinox trademark.
Yeah.
Like Creo did, I'm just trying to remember, Rhinox, Cheetor, they did Rat Trap. They did Rattle in this case. I'm trying to see who else. I'm trying to turn my head to look here. But they used it as like an excuse. They did Black Arachnia. That was another one.
Yeah.
They used it just to throw those names onto stuff just to keep them trademarked and stuff. So like Dinobot, they didn't have to worry about because that shows up with the Dinobots, so they don't have to worry about it. But it's just they used it as an excuse just to keep those names because there was such a big worry of those trademarks expiring and then someone else swooping in and getting it after the 3-year span. So this would be a great excuse to revitalize a lot of those trademarks, bring back a lot of those characters, put them into the limelight. And on top of that, I mean, if you're worried about losing Bumblebee, your mainstay character, man, you got Cheetor. And let me tell you something, Cheetor was the thing in 1997 for kids. He was the most popular character with children back in 97, 98, and there was no denying that, to the point that he was the face of the Beast Machines product because of it. The numbers were there. So Cheetor could easily slide in and take Bumblebee's place, and no one will care.
Hopefully they make him talk.
Yeah, and well, yeah, that That I hope more. Yeah,
Oh boy.
Cheetor doesn't talk. That'll be like, it'll be like, wow, guys, who's writing this stuff? Really, you know?
He's
But
going to be the
anyways,
new leader, and he doesn't speak.
Anyways, the point is that this is great. This is awesome. Definitely, let's see this happen. I'm curious what people think. Would they prefer the next movie to be an animated movie, Bumblebee the second, Optimus Prime movie, a major motion picture, or a Beast Wars movie?